Getting away from mosques, we have to deal with a mausoleum, and in this case, the Samanid Mausoleum. Now, this is a domed brick mausoleum. It's actually fairly small. You can see from this image that it's not a massive structure. This is not the Taj Mahal. Now, it's interesting because the early and traditional Muslim burial is going to be a simple unmarked grave. Even Muhammad's tomb originally is unmarked. Eventually, a wood screen and dome will be added to Muhammad's tomb. But in this new tradition, we start to see dynastic mausoleums. This one is one of the earliest that we will see in the Muslim world, this happening to be in Uzbekistan. Now, the brickwork is what takes incredible skill here. Look at the detail of the brickwork, the circles, the cutouts. And not only do we have the detailed brickwork, but we have the blind arcade or the false arcade along the top, all done in brickwork. So that's this level here running just below the level of the roof. We also see engaged columns in the corners where the bricks have been brought back, and it gives the illusion of a freestanding column, but in fact it's part of the wall behind it, so it's an engaged column. We see the same detailed brickwork inside, where they're altering the forms of those bricks to create these very busy patterns, these patterns that are very reminiscent of what we tend to see in a lot of arabesque and other Muslim decorative schemes. Now, the dome is going to be particular, and by the way, in the center there we see the tomb itself, and it looks a lot more simple than you would expect. We don't usually think of brick as a decorative scheme, but in this case, that's exactly what it's become. We would normally expect marble or some kind of glorious stone here. But let's talk about the dome. Now, it just looks like a dome. Who cares? It's a simple dome, but they've put a dome on a cube. Now, this form is really common in the Byzantine Empire. It's also going to become very common in Islamic architecture. And the dome actually sits on a series of squinches. Now, let me walk you through this slide, because this is a difference between Western architecture and Islamic architecture. In Western architecture, if you have a dome, you're going to put it on a drum, and then if you have a square base beneath it, you use pendentives, which are this triangular form that brings you down to 4 square columns beneath. So this is a transitional zone. In Islam, they treat it differently. They create our dome, or our cube underneath, which you see laid out here. I was being very careful, and that just fell apart there. And then in between where the drum actually would be freestanding, they put in a series of 4 supports in the corners. And you see they just cut a straight angle across. These are called squinches. Probably the most awkward term used in architecture, although I'm sure I can come up with more. And we see that here. So here the dome is sitting on the cube. You can see where the dome actually sits on the cube's flat surface. And then in those transitional areas, we have a squinch, which is right here, which cuts 45 degrees across the corner of our cube underneath. And in this case, they put a semi-dome, a partial dome in there, just to set it back. So the force of the dome is actually going back and away from us, back here, and then back again until it reaches the corner and can go down into the ground. This is just a different way of putting a dome on a cube. And it's a way that we're going to see used frequently in Islamic architecture.